All right. My name is Rich Schmidt. We're here today with Claudia Bowers. It's November 11th, 2025, and we're on Zoom. Claudia is joining us from Miami, Florida. And thank you so much, Claudia, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Rich.
The first question to get things started is why wine?
Oh, why wine? Why not? I mean, everything about wine is just so beautiful, so personal. Um, the the love and that goes into creating that beautiful product is just, why I love wine. I feel like sometimes when I'm enjoying a glass of wine, it makes me feel like I'm in that place where that bottle of wine comes from, and I visualize the person that was caring for the vines and producing that wine for me to enjoy. And I just truly love feeling connected to the place through wine.
So let's talk about your life before wine a little bit. Tell us about where you were
Mhm.
born and raised and kind of your early life.
Of course, I was actually born in Nicaragua. But when I was very little, my family moved to Costa Rica. So I grew up in Costa Rica in a small town called Heredia, the city of flowers, which is funny that I ended up in the city of roses from the city of flowers. Moved to the US, to California, when I was a teenager, and with my mom and my two younger sisters. And I lived there for a few years. Lived in the Bay Area, San Francisco, mostly, and worked there in San Francisco for a couple of years, and met an Oregonian in San Francisco, and 3 years after we started dating, we got married, and I moved to Portland, Oregon in 1993.
So when you moved to Oregon, had you been here much before? Had you formed many impressions of Oregon yet?
No, I actually visited Portland when I went to meet his parents, which was about a year prior to when we got married. So I did go to Portland, and but I didn't really see a lot of, like, I didn't go outside of Portland. It was just in the city for like a weekend. So but that was my only time in Portland prior to moving there. So I trusted him with my life moving to Portland, packed up my bags and moved my life to Oregon. And no regrets. I loved every second.
I love that. Tell me about kind of first impressions of Oregon and what was the first thing you did once you moved here?
So this was 1993. And I have to tell you, this is a funny story because a lot of people didn't know where Costa Rica was. When I was talking to people in Portland, in 1993, people thought that Costa Rica was a city in Mexico. And so educating people was definitely um, a must back in those days, about the culture, about the country, food, it's just, trying to, just introducing a new culture to Oregonians back then, other than a Mexican culture, right? Um, it's actually fun. It was actually really, really fun. And I did. I think that was probably the most challenging, I think, part of moving to Portland. It was um, having people say to me, I don't know where that is, like, I don't know where you come from, and tell me about it. So it was a challenge, but it also was an opportunity to educate.
So what did you do for work?
When I first moved to Portland, I don't know if you lived in Oregon long enough, for many years, but when I moved to Portland, Saks Fifth Avenue, the department store, They had just opened Saks Fifth Avenue, and I had my job in San Francisco. I was working in retail in the beauty industry. So I went to Saks Fifth Avenue, walked in with my resume, and I said I want a job. And so I it was like the same day. They said, well, let's just go in the office and let's, do an interview. And that same afternoon, I got a job at Saks Fifth Avenue as the brand ambassador for Christian Dior Cosmetics. Um, and I was there for 5 years, 5 years representing the Christian Dior brand. Unfortunately, Saks Fifth Avenue did not, they closed.
Mhm.
I think like 12 years later, they had to close the department store. Now it's the Apple store in downtown.
Give me a good story from working at Saks in those days.
Oh my goodness. So I remember all I mean, my clients, there were a lot of my clients were from out of state. So a lot of phone sales. Like we had to pick up the phone, physically pick up the phone and get a sale. So that was training right there to call and say, hey, we have this promotion, and how are you doing with your, moisturizers? Like, do you need to replenish your products? So all phone calls, phone sales, because we didn't really have a lot of foot traffic in Portland at the time. But also I had to learn a few words in Japanese because the Japanese tourists they came to Portland at the time. I'm not sure anymore, but in Portland at the time, 1993, 94, 95, we had a lot of Japanese tourists come to Portland. And so they were definitely, especially with Christian Dior, Chanel, all of those, luxury brands. They loved luxury brands. So they would come in with their list and they would say, I want 10 of these lipsticks, I want 20 of these moisturizers. So whenever we saw the Japanese tourists walking, we're like, that's mine. So so that was great. Yeah. So I was there for 5 years.
And what came next for you?
So I was in the beauty industry in Oregon for 11 years. I represented Christian Dior, Lancome Cosmetics, and then went back to Christian Dior. What happened, how I actually ended up in the wine industry is a, a colleague of mine in the beauty industry. She was with a different brand, and she said she after many years in the beauty industry, she said, I quit. I have a new job in wine. And at the time, I loved everything food and wine. I was like, "What?" I'm like, "What do you mean? You moving to wine? How'd you get that job?" And she said, "I started working part-time in at a winery, and a year or so later, she joined their sales team." And she said, "So new career, new industry." Excuse me. So at the time, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, "Tell me all about it. I'm very interested." Because I was ready to make a career change, and so very sweet of her. She uh, connected me with the tasting room manager. This was at Rex Hill. This is the time that Paul Hart owned the winery before A to Z acquired Rex Hill. So back in those days. And so I got an interview and I started a couple of weeks later, I started in the tasting room, just, helping out. And Rich, I fell in love with wine even more. And the production, the stories, everything from vine to glass. I just love the process. And I knew 6 months into it, I knew that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I found my passion. And so I think 6 months after I started working at Rex Hill, I was there. I was working just a couple weekends a month because I still had my job in the beauty industry. I knew that I wanted to to work in the wine industry, but I also knew that I needed more wine training than just what I had at the time. And so I enrolled in the ISG uh, level 1 and 2 program. And in those in that time, it was the Heathman Hotel hosted the ISG courses. So I took level 1 and 2, and then after that, I took the WSET advanced course. And after, getting my wine training, I knew that I was ready. And so I got my resume ready, sent it out, and I only sent it out to 2 places. And one place called me back, and it was Bishop Creek Cellars and Urban Wineworks. I don't know if you remember Urban Wineworks, but it was a super cool place in the Pearl District. And Bishop Creek, the vineyard, or the owner of Bishop Creek, he owned Urban Wineworks. So they hired me as the tasting room manager for both locations. They had a small tasting room in Newburgh, and then the tasting room in the Pearl. And it was also event space. So I was managing the tasting room. I was organizing and booking all of the events, corporate events. Our clients, at the time were Nike, Amazon, all of it, lots and lots of, corporate events at Urban Wineworks. We had the first Thursday events every month. So it was a very busy place, and I loved it. Also, I was one of the wine instructors for their wine blending classes. At the time, they were super popular. So I was one of the instructors there. And I think because of the education, they were focused on education. That's what actually sold me on the job. Because I wanted to, just like with, educating people about a culture, my culture, I wanted to educate people about wine and food and wine pairing. So I took the job, and I was there 5 years. Um, Again, very, very fun. Um, Met a lot of people, and started going to wine country to learn more about wine on my time off. I had the pleasure of working with Marcus Goodfellow of Matello at Urban Wineworks. He was actually our winemaker for Bishop Creek. So we had a really good product. So yeah, so that was my initial my first job in the wine industry. And then in 2010, Bernard Lacroix, the founder of Willakenzie, um, offered me a job at Willakenzie as their wine club and events manager. This was in 2010. And then the goal, my goal was to elevate the events and at Willakenzie, and to grow the wine club. And I think a year or a year and a half after I started at Willakenzie, we noticed that a lot of our out-of-state wine club members were leaving the club. So that was challenging to keep them, to retain the out-of-state members. So I created, with Bernard's permission, of course, I created Willakenzie on Tour. It was a program that was designed or created for our wine club members out of state, to retain our wine club members out of state. The program, we started just with like a handful of cities. We started going to, like, I think it was Orange County, Florida. We did come to Florida, Texas. So we had a couple of states that were like key states where our wine club members lived. So we started in, just kind of see what, how they will receive the program. And it was actually a huge success from the beginning, because at the time we were the only winery that was taking the winery experience on the road. And so it was more of an appreciation, program for our wine club members. And not only did we retain the out-of-state members, but we also recruited new ones, because the wine club members, the existing members would bring, friends. And so they would sign up for the club. And we did that. I mean, we started, like I said, with a handful of cities, and then it grew into this, amazing program where we were going to Boston, we were going to we even went to Nantucket. I mean, it was such an amazing experience. I think one of the most fun projects that I've ever been a part of. Um, and just to see, like, and to hear the wine club members, saying how happy they were that we went to their city, we did something for them, we hosted an event just for them. So they felt, like they obviously appreciated. And I took the production team on the road. So there were times that I took Bernard, to different cities. Ronnie Lacroute, who's an amazing storyteller. I mean, just listening to her talk about wine and just in her story is just so inspiring. So I enjoyed, taking Ronnie on the road. Thibaut Monday, he would also go on the road with me to the Willakension tour events. And so yeah, they were everyone, I have to say, Rich, they were a part of this program, and they're just, like I said, we loved it. We really did. And our wine club members, enjoyed um seeing us too. Well, not necessarily me, to be honest with you. They could care less, but they wanted to see Bernard, they wanted to see Ronnie, they wanted to see Thibaut. I was just like, oh yeah, she's here. Just pour the wine, girl. Just keep pouring. But yeah, it was amazing.
Give me an example of like when you had them there, what kind of event would you do? What was the key thing you wanted to have the event showcase?
So again, it was a a client or wine club appreciation events, and so we hosted them. We partner with the distributors. So I would, pick up the phone and I would call, let's say, a distributor in Miami. Okay, because we did events here in Miami. And I would say, hey, we're coming to Miami. We're doing this Will on tour program. We have, an X amount of wine club members in Miami, or any of the cities we went to. And so we're thinking, 50 to 100 people, depending on, how many wine club members we had. Um, can you find us a venue partner? And so we work with the distributors because we also wanted to support the accounts that had what, that listed with Mackenzie. So we partner with those venues. And for example, in Denver, we had an event at Elway's, John Elway's restaurant. We needed a venue that was big enough for 100 people because we had a good amount of wine club members there. And we encourage our wine club members to bring guests. So we had, that partnership with the distributors, and they so they connected us with the venues, and then I would organize everything from the winery, and then show up, of course, a couple of days before to, walk the space, meet the team. And then I started doing ride-alongs with the distributors. So Bernard's like, hey, when you're there, but just do some, sales calls. So I did. So it was again super fun, and just really felt like I was helping the brand, and growing, not just growing the club, but also the wholesale, um, the team. So that was, so it was a program that it wasn't just direct to consumer, but it was also the B2B.
So before we move on, I want to back up for a minute and talk about a couple of things you mentioned on the in the
Hmm.
lead up to that. So you said even before joining the wine industry, you already had a passion for food and wine. So tell me a little bit
Hmm.
about that, about developing an interest in food and wine, and about um, what you knew about wine before you started working in wine.
Absolutely. So I have to say that the passion for food, and maybe not just for food, but for entertaining, I think I got that from my abuelita, from my grandma. Since I was a little girl, I remember her, she was always cooking for the family. And we had a very large family. So, people always stopped by and they always came for dinner because, she was just an amazing cook. So I remember helping her in the kitchen. Um, my job was to chop onions and go cut lemons from the tree in the backyard, or get herbs from the backyard because she grew her own herbs and some veggies. And so I would go in the back and she'd be like, oh, get this. And so I would go grab it for her. But I just remember her cooking, and she was so good at it. So just having people at the dinner table telling their stories and just eating this delicious food. It just felt like it was magical, just having everyone in one place laughing, having an amazing time, and just, having family time. That was to me, that was magical. Um, my love for wine. So my mom, she worked in hospitality for a couple of decades in the Bay Area. She was a server at the Fairmont Hotel in San Jose. And I I used to go visit her from time, once in a while, to her, go to her work. And so she, it was a luxury, hotel. So, they had a lot of, good, like good wines on the list, and spirits, like premium brands. So she started teaching me about, wines and spirits and what she learned. So, and how to taste, wine. And so she was kind of like my mentor, I guess, my first mentor. And she was really good at it, by the way, Rich. I remember watching her at work, and she just looked so happy and genuinely happy, and she would make people smile. And I remember thinking, that's what I want to do. I want to make people smile. And so I remember thinking that I wanted to do something with food and wine. Although I started in the beauty industry by chance, I still had, like, the food and wine was always my passion. So that's why I wanted to be involved in or be a part of the wine industry. But it was my mom. My mom was and my grandmother. My grandmother first, and then my mom. And then going to, just having some, going to dinner with my mom too, like on her nights off. We would go to, Italian restaurants in San Jose, or in San Francisco. I remember we used to go to this Portuguese restaurant and try some delicious Portuguese wines. And so, yeah, so that's where my mom planted the seed.
I love that. That's amazing.
Mhm.
So with that background, tell me about the first job at Rex Hill. 6 months in, you said you knew it was what you wanted to do for the rest of your life. So
Mhm.
tell me about those 6 months. What was the job like? What was it that grabbed you and didn't let go?
So yes, I was pouring wine in the tasting room. And I remember, like, reading about about the wine, and I'm like, what, tell me about it. And I would, of course, ask the tasting room staff that were there a lot longer than I was, for feedback. And but the production team, at the time, it was Ryan Arms. um he was the winemaker at Rex Hill. And Dominique Mahe of Furioso. He worked there. And by the way, Dominique and I ended up working together at Willa Kenzie. And so small world, right? So just talking to them, excuse me, and just learning about what they were doing, because I would ask questions. What are you doing? What are you doing? So I was like that little 5-year-old, like, what are you doing? um, because I really wanted to learn. And I wanted to sound smart when I was talking about wine, although I really didn't have a lot of information other than, like, this is good. And so, but I wanted to know, like, why is that good? How is this made? And so So all those technical questions that a lot of, consumers, they're wine savvy and they wanted to know. So I didn't want to be like, oh, I don't know. So I did ask questions to the production team. And then also I enjoyed going to the vineyard and looking at the vines, or sometimes, like the clusters or during harvest. I just really wanted to experience it all. So 6 months into it, I knew that that's the wine industry, the Oregon wine industry. That's where I wanted to be. That's where I belong. I felt like I belong.
So you mentioned education as a big part of the next step. Tell me about the ISG and WSET experience. What was the experience like for you? What did you find exciting about learning about wine at that level?
So again, just thinking about, like, for example, where the wines came from, so learning about the different regions, old world versus new world, and the different, varieties, grape varieties. But I think that for me was more of their stories. I really wanted to hear. I didn't want to know, like, I mean, yes, it was, fun to learn about the technical, like, oh, it's, neutral oak barrels and blah blah blah, but I wanted to know about the place. And that's what fascinated me was, you know, um, how long the vine, like how old were the vines, and who's, like who started the wines, and how are they making the wines. And so I just wanted to know the story behind it, right? And that's what grabbed me. Um, at, for the ISG program, there were 15 of us. Most of the um, most of the people there were in the restaurant working. One owned a restaurant, I remember. Others were servers, somms, and I was the only one who wanted to be on the production side. Um, and so that was different because we were learning different things. I mean, like we were all learning the same, but I think my perception was different than everybody else's, right? Because of the job, right? It was different. Um, and then same with WSET. I went to I took the advanced course, and same thing. Like, and then for the WSET, I felt more comfortable after that course with the food and wine pairing. Um, I felt more comfortable recommending, food pairings with the wines that I was selling. And then I started, of course, creating pairings at home. So I took I took it to heart. I would go home and I'm like, you know what? I heard about this. I'm gonna try it and taste it with this. So it was fun. It was homework, fun homework.
The best kind of homework.
The best kind of the delicious homework.
So you mentioned after that you you felt ready, you took the next step, and
Hmm.
you're working at Bishop Creek and Urban Wine Works. Tell me about the place and the job, and especially, I mean, balancing two different locations at having events, especially corporate events. It's a lot to kind of manage.
Hmm.
Tell me about how that job evolved, what you learned from it, what you kind of biggest achievements were there.
Oh my gosh, I think my biggest achievements, and I'll tell you right now because I'm so proud of this person. Um, she is a winemaker now, Lee Brown of Lalati. Lee had just relocated from Indiana to Portland, and I think she had just graduated from culinary school, and she sent her resume, and she wanted to work in the tasting room. And so I remember interviewing her, and I just thought she was lovely and very genuine and very passionate. And I thought at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, with the food and wine pairing, because in addition to the blending classes, we wanted to start some food and wine pairing classes. And so I was like, she would be perfect. So I hired Lee, and she also became one of our wine instructors at Urban Wine Works. Um, and yes, and so she took our food and wine pairing classes to the next level. And so I feel like, and then she was also very important to us when it came to the wine classes, the blending classes. Her approach was unique and fresh, and people just absolutely loved, talking to her. And so yeah, when she decided to go, because she thought she was going to do the culinary, that was going to be her path. I mean, her career path was, being either a chef or having her own restaurant. And now to see her as a winemaker, and she's an amazing winemaker, I'm very proud. I really am very proud. I'm like a proud mama. Um, but as far as, the challenges of, being in two different locations, to me was just recruiting the right team and people that you could trust, and train them, and then, give them, so I would have someone at Bishop Creek in the tasting room. She, was basically managing the the tasting room and making sure everything, we had all the tools, that we had everything for that location. And then Urban Wineworks, I would say Urban Wineworks was the busiest of the two tasting rooms because of the corporate events. We worked, and that's another, learning experience for me, because we didn't have a chef. So we worked with caterers, local caterers. So we had a preferred list of caterers that we worked with, and just learning to manage the caterers too was interesting, because we needed to be very clear in our communication of expectations and rules, and like, you find this kitchen clean, you have to leave it clean. So trust me, we were like, sometimes they're like, what happened? They left, and we had to clean the kitchen. So we made it very, so we had, so a lot of, like I said, a learning experience for me, or opportunity for me for to working with, third party food vendors. So that was interesting. That was again, a learning opportunity for me and for my team. But I think that that was probably, as far as challenges, just wanting to be in two places at once and can't, right? That was I think that was I was gonna I would say that was the most challenging part of my job, because especially since, like, Newburgh and Portland, it's not like I'm gonna hop in the car and go check on, this person. It's a 45-minute drive, right? So that was the only thing. I would say that it wasn't frustrating, it was just definitely a challenge, is wanting to be in two places at once.
So when the Willa Kinsey opportunity came along, what convinced you that was the next step you wanted to take?
I think because of the I mean, let's be honest here, with like Enzi as a brand, you know, they were, and still are, like the brand that everyone was looking at. And also the wines were spectacular. And the story. And right before I met Bernard, I attended a tasting in Portland where Ronnie LaCroix was speaking. And I had never met her before. I had never tasted the wines. I was still working at Urban Wineworks. And I just remember listening to her, and she just very activating. And it was like, I felt like she was a magnet. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to talk to her. I want to learn from her. Like, I want to be her. And so I just loved her. And so I remember at the end of the tasting, I introduced myself and I said, oh my gosh, you're amazing and your wines are lovely. And she's like, oh, thank you. And then months later, I meet Bernard, and he, had that opportunity. And I'm not gonna lie, I jumped full, head first, like, let's do it. There was no, like, let me think about it. It was instantly like, yes, I will take the job.
And you talked about your challenges there of elevating events and of course the wine club. So tell me about how the job evolved as you were working there. What were the next challenges after kind of taking the wine club on the road, working with events? What else did you do at Willackenzie?
So I obviously support, I was helping in the tasting room when they needed my help, but they had a very strong tasting room manager, Sherry, who's a amazing woman. She was there for like I think 17 years. She started as an intern at Mackenzie, so she was managing the tasting room. Absolutely amazing woman. And so, but from time to time she would need help, and so we would go and help. What I think I enjoyed, I wouldn't call it a challenge, but it was opportunities, was hosting the top accounts in Portland, bringing them to the winery, and a challenge, and it was a challenge to get everyone from Portland to come to Yamhill. Because let's face it, it's quite the drive, right? So, just having to, organize or arrange transportation so people wouldn't be drinking and driving, but just getting all those, Portland accounts, our top accounts, to come to visit and spend an afternoon with us. So that was really cool. And I was grateful to be a part of that. And then, but as far as, challenges, I'd say just the location. A lot of people, and back in the day, I think it was just Willackenzie, on that road. Now you have, Grand Marin, you have Penarash around there, but back in those days, it was just Willackenzie, I believe, maybe Lene, but they were just starting out. So, but yeah, so just trying to get people, uh, just get traffic through the door, so I also did I used to blitz Portland. I used to go to hotels. I used to go to hotels to the concierge, managers, and bring brochures and please send people our way. So yeah, it wasn't the picking up the phone like with Saks Fifth Avenue. It was more like let's pound the pavement in Portland to get people to come visit the winery. Um, as far as the wine club challenges with the wine club, the only challenge we had was the retention of out of state members. But like I said, with Mackenzie on tour, we found that it was a program that our members really did appreciate, having us, come to their cities, say thank you, bring them treats. And yeah, so that was a challenge, but then it turned into an amazing, successful program for us.
So what came next for you after Willackenzie?
So they say that all good things come to an end, right? Because I have to say, well, I'm getting choked up. I loved Willa Kenzie. I loved my Willa Kenzie family. And when Bernard decided to sell to Jackson Family Wines, that was tough. Because we were a family. We loved and respected each other. And when Bernard, we understood, he wanted to retire, and it was time. But that hurt, that really hurt. And so I did stay with Jackson Family Wines for a few months. I wanted to, give it a try. But I'll be honest with you, the dynamic changed a bit after Bernard left, and then some key members of the production team decided to leave. So I felt that it was not a good fit for me anymore. And it just, like I said, the dynamic had changed. So I decided to take some time off. Um, I decided to take a year off to focus on family and to travel. And I thought that I would eventually go back to the wine industry. But a year later, when I wasn't even sending my resume out or anything. I was having dinner at the Benson Hotel, the iconic Benson Hotel in Portland. And I had done some, events and dinners with, or in I knew the food and beverage manager there. And I was just having dinner there one night, and the GM came up to me and he's like, "How are you? How's it going? How are things at Will Mackenzie?" And I said, "Oh, I'm no longer with Will Mackenzie. I'm just taking, time off." And he asked me if he's like, "Really?" And he's like, "Here's my card. Call me." He said, "I want to talk to you." I'm like, "Okay." So I called the next day and he's like, "Have you ever thought about selling hotels?" I go, "Selling hotels? What does that mean?" And so after a couple of conversations, he offered me a job as a business travel manager. I joined their sales team. Um, but Rich, I wanted to do something extraordinary there. And wanted to um I wanted for my hotel to stand out. And so I decided that, you know what? I want to partner with my wine friends and bring them to the Benson Hotel. And so I created the sipping hour um, at the Benson. And so we had daily tastings in the lobby, in the hotel lobby. So I started, booking all these wineries, and every single day we had a different winery, and the wineries gladly accepted the invitation because they weren't just, local guests, they were guests from all over the world. So they, got to tell the stories, introduce the brand. And so that was really, really fun. The sipping hour, I started with just me booking the wineries because I had the contacts, and it just got too big that the food and beverage team took it over. But that was really fun. And so again, I wanted to stay connected to the wine, to wine country. And that was my way of um still being a part of it. Um I was at the Benson for a couple of years, and then I actually moved up quickly in the hotel industry. In 2 years, I went from business travel sales manager to director of sales. Um, I ended up at a Kimpton property, a luxury Kimpton property, Kimpton River Place. And I did the same thing. I, wanted to create really memorable experiences for our guests. So again, partner with the Oregon wineries, and we did some special events. So it was definitely, again, like Oregon wine runs in my blood. So I wanted to still, be a part of it somehow. And until the last day I worked in Portland, I supported my wine friends, the wine industry, and I am grateful for their support too. Because anytime I called and like, "Hey, you want to do this? You want to partner? They were always like, "Yes, let's do it." So I'm very grateful for their support too. I feel very lucky to have been a part of that industry. And that's why I can't let go.
You have to take it with you when you leave. I love that.
I took it with me. I brought it with me.
Tell
And
me
it
about
was fun. And sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. Go.
It was funny because before I made the decision to move to Miami, it was a couple of my Oregon wine friends that said, "Are you interested in repping us in Florida?" And that's how the idea came up of, you know, doing something here in Florida for, supporting the Oregon wine producers here in Florida, because I had friends asking me like, we need representation in Florida. Can you help us? Now, my sister, she also is in the beverage industry. She has over 2 decades of experience globally with spirit brands. So we talked about it, and we said, why don't we partner and start a sales and distribution company? So here we are. Yeah. And so we represent wine, spirits and non-alcoholic beverage brands. We are the boots on the ground here in Florida. And we like to think that we are an extension of their sales and marketing team. And for me personally, like Oregon wine, that's what I focus on is Oregon wines. And Rich, I go to some of the, best restaurants here in Florida and Miami, and I don't see Oregon wines on the list. And I ask, why don't you have Oregon wines on the list? And this is before I even started working with the Oregon wineries here. I would ask, like, why don't you have Oregon wines here on the list? And so yeah, so spreading the love, Oregon, or the word about Oregon wine. That's been my mission since I came to Miami, since I arrived.
I'm going to come back to that in just a moment, but I'm curious before we talk about that, about your time with the hotels. What is different about the hotel industry? What did you enjoy about it after working with food and beverage specifically for so long? What's different about hotels, and what did you find was I guess the key to your growth in the industry?
I think that my approach to when guests of when because I started working directly with like corporate accounts. So for example, some of my top accounts were Nike, Intel, Microsoft, right? So knowing that I would pull the arrival list, right? Every day. So we have, 3 people from Nike coming, 4 people from Providence or Kaiser here. So I made sure that they received um, a food and drink voucher to go, to keep them in the restaurant or go to the bar and enjoy a glass of wine on us or a bite, right? So still trying to keep them and connect the food and wine, aspect of the business and keep them on the property, right? But also enjoying a glass of Oregon wine. That's what the drink voucher was for. It wasn't for a cocktail, it wasn't for a rum and coke, it was for a glass of Oregon wine. So I think that making their experience, their stay, a very memorable, visit, and also just enjoying, because a lot of the times, these people are traveling, they're there for business, they're there for meetings, they don't have time to go to wine country, right? So just having that experience, like, I didn't go to wine country, but I did have a delicious, glass of Oregon wine at the hotel. So I think that a lot of times sales departments, they just focus on the sale, like sign the contract, you know and then next. I think that just like with the wine club membership, you have to retain those clients. And so because there are other hotels in the same block that they had a choice to stay at Benson or Kimpton River Place. They had other options. So just keeping them there and keep them coming, that was my job. It wasn't just like, oh, okay, we got this new account. Okay, we're gonna get the travelers now. Okay, next. No, no, no. We need to keep those people happy. So it was, I feel, not just getting the new accounts, but retaining the existing accounts was what's key to the success of the hotel.
So you mentioned obviously the move to Miami and not necessarily for wine originally, but coming up with an idea for bringing Oregon wine to Miami to Florida. So tell me about getting started there, about finding your niche, about choosing which wineries you're going to represent, and
Mhm.
about starting to get to understand the food and beverage scene in Florida in a way where you could be successful.
Yes. So my sister, thank goodness, she's been here 21 years. So I've been taking her lead. I've been, she's um it's funny because I feel like in Portland, I know like all the restaurants, I know the chefs, I know, the Oregon producer, the wine producers. And so here I'm the new kid on the block. So I'm like, oh my God, I don't know anyone. However, I'm not afraid to go in to a restaurant, sit at the bar and go, hi, I'm Claudia, and I just relocated here from Oregon. So tell me, so I talk to the bartenders, I talk to the servers, and just asking questions, right? Luckily for me, my sister's been here 21 years, and as I mentioned earlier, she has over 20 years of experience in the beverage industry with luxury brands globally. So she has a global network. And so I am very lucky that she has all the, the connections and the established and the accounts, right? So has introduced me to a lot of people. And so I'm very grateful for that. But she is spirits, so that is her expertise, that is her niche, right? Her is spirits. I'm wine. And so we decided to combine the two. And I I love learning about spirits, and she is the best um instructor, the best teacher. Um, and she knows a lot about wine, but she is really enjoying learning more about Oregon wines. And I love to listen to her now when we go into accounts and talk about Oregon wines. And I'm just like, oh my God, I converted her. She did go to Oregon a few times to visit me, and we went to wine country. So she is familiar with, a few of the brands. And when I told her that, because when I first moved here, we knew we were going to work together. We knew we were going to do this sales and distribution project, but it was going to be for spirits, and and then it turned into, and then event management too. And then it turned into wine, spirits, non-alcoholic beverages, which, we are so grateful for the opportunities, because now we have brands that they are knocking on our doors, asking for representation. Please represent us. So we are very blessed that we have these brands, calling us. And so what we do is we obviously we taste the product, and we decide whether we want to add it to our portfolio. For us, the Oregon wine brands that we want to represent are more the boutique wineries that are too small for um, the big, distributors. They don't make enough, they don't produce enough wine. So that's what we want to do. We want to help those brands distribute their wines here. Because again, the big distributors don't look at them. They don't want to look at them, because they're like, you're too small for us. So that's what we want to do. We want to support and we want to help the boutique producers. And that's what we're doing.
You said earlier that when you went to restaurants and didn't see Oregon wine on the list, you would ask about it. I'm curious about what your general impressions have been of how much Oregon wine is in Florida, and when there isn't, what are the answers you're getting when you ask why it's not there?
They say because, well, some people say it's because California, the California producers or just the distributors are very aggressive with what they offer the restaurants and or the grocery stores, like upscale grocery stores. They have it in their budget to, offer perks or excuse me, or like, carry this wine and I'll give you free cases of this, So I feel like just like with anything, I think that is all about the relationships. So going to visit the accounts and becoming a customer and just talking to the bartenders, talking to the server, eventually meeting the food and beverage director or the restaurant GM. When I go to the grocery stores, there are some, or wine shops, I'm always asking like, who owns this shop, and just genuinely saying, hey, would love the opportunity to taste you on my wines or my spirits. And, there's our, quality products. Um, and a lot of times they go, well, I don't want to bring anything new, but I'm just saying, okay, no problem. But just just the opportunity to taste. And we find that once they taste the product, they go, "Oh my gosh, this is so good." And like that's Oregon wines for you. I have seen maybe a couple of obviously the usual suspects, right, of the Oregon wine industry, the bigger brands. I've seen them on menus, but the small producers, not very many, not very many. But we're changing that. And we're also offering, in addition to, like obviously we're supporting the accounts, but we're also offering the opportunity to educate their staff. So we're offering staff trainings. Once you bring in our we place the product in an account, we go in and we educate the staff, which is important.
Mhm. So you said you've been there about a year. How's it going so far?
14 months. I've been here 14 months. It's going really well. I the food scene here is it's getting better. It's getting better. Um, but there are a lot of restaurants here in Miami. I mean, it's a big city. So opportunities here are endless. But and not only just in Miami, but just the suburbs of Miami, Coral Gables, Coconut Grove, Surfside. Yeah, they have, lots of, luxury resorts that have obviously, restaurants, Michelin star restaurants. So trying to get in those, places is a challenge, but we keep at it. But the food scene in Miami is, yeah, it's very vibrant. It's and then and the bars too. Like my sister, is, like I said, she's the spirits expert, and she knows probably all the bartenders at the top, restaurants here. And so it's really fun to hang out with her and learn also about the cocktail, side of the business. Um, but yeah, but we do have our focus. Like I said, she's spirits, I'm wine. We're doing both, but anytime there's an account that is interested in wine, she's like, go in there. So but she's been amazing, and I'm very grateful to have her as my guide here, and yeah, and my tour guide. Yeah, I'm lucky that she's been here 21 years, so like I said, she knows everyone.
So looking ahead a little bit, tell me about how you see your part of the business growing. What are kind of your goals for the next few years in terms of Oregon wine and Florida?
Mhm. So, yes, so Oregon wines, we do definitely want to grow our Oregon wine portfolio. And but for I guess the next couple of years, we want to take Oregon wines to international key markets. My sister has a team in China. And so we have a fantastic team in China. So, and we would love to, in a couple of years, take Oregon wines to Asia and Latin America. Latin America. Um, I say we, but it's my sister. She has a lot of contacts also in Latin America, South America mostly. So we would love to take Oregon wines to Latin America and Asia, and that's going to happen. Um, it we're thinking the next 2 years. We want to conquer the Florida market first, and then go to China and Latin America. That's our goal, and that's our plan for Oregon wines.
That's really exciting. I'm curious, as you look ahead from your perspective, what are the biggest what challenges does that throw your way? What are you, or as you look at that, what challenges does that present for you?
Well, for me, well, I think I I'd say is I'm lucky that my sister has all the contacts, but for me would be just trying to find like the logistics of, getting wines to Asia, to Latin America. And thankfully my sister is the one who's working on that. So I would, that's her challenge, not mine. But no, I definitely see yeah, she's working on all of the logistics because she's also like I said with spirits, she's already working with buyers in China for spirits. So she already has the clients there. Her team, they're doing a fantastic job um in China. So so just basically the challenges would be just the logistics.
Well, that's really exciting. I'm happy to hear that. I'm excited to see how it goes. I want to back up for a second and talk about Oregon more generally for a moment. You obviously have seen a lot of growth in the Oregon wine industry. You've been around for a lot of its growth.
Hmm.
Tell me about what the industry looks like today versus when you started. What are the biggest changes you've seen, and what are the biggest sort of challenges and opportunities right now for the Oregon wine industry?
Okay, so back in, let's see, 2005, people didn't know that Oregon had a wine country. And actually even today, I just had a conversation with someone who was like, Oregon has a wine country? I'm like, yeah, the Willamette Valley. What? I've never heard of that. And so it's interesting that even now in 2025, some people don't know that Oregon has a wine country and that wines are amazing. But yes, so in 2005, I remember, you know, traveling and people didn't know that Oregon produced amazing wine. So to now, having like having conversations with people in restaurants and they go, yes, I love Oregon wines. I had conversations, in fact, recently with the Psalm who was like, I was in Oregon in 2015 and I went to wine country and I loved it. I was there for just a couple of days and I went to, one, like A, B, C winery. Loved it. So just knowing that I would say the Willamette Valley Winery Association has been doing an amazing job spreading the Oregon, the spreading the word about Oregon wine. I think that they've done an amazing job with all of their events like Pinot in the City, those type of events that are taking pretty much, the Willamette Valley on the road. So I think that's also it helps. In fact, I should reach out to the Willamette Valley Winery Association and say, let's do a Pinot in the City in Miami. Because there's a lot of, like I said, opportunities here in Florida for Oregon wines. But just having, from, like I said, in 20 years, talking about Oregon wines 20 years ago, where people were like, no, never heard of it, to now, Psalms or even just consumers saying, love Oregon wines. So we've come a long ways in 20 years.
Obviously, there are some unique challenges right now to selling wine, to selling alcohol.
Mm-hmm,
I'm curious how you've seen that play out and what your kind of approach is, and what Oregon Wine's more general approach
mm-hmm,
is to sort of handling the challenges of the moment.
mm-hmm. It's actually, that's a really good question because we have noticed that people are drinking less. It's actually the youngsters, right? They're drinking less. So our approach is we focus on the Gen Xers and the boomers. We're going to luxury resorts, where you have, the Gen Xers, staying there. The one that are wine appreciate, that love wine, they appreciate wine. We're also partnering with yacht clubs. We're partnering with golf clubs. And my sister has a good relationship with a lot of the cigar clubs here. that's a thing in Miami and in Fort Lauderdale. There are so many cigar clubs here, private clubs. And so she has this great relationships. And so Oregon Pinot Noir, amazing with cigars, so we have that opportunity now to partner um with cigar lounges or cigar clubs. So we're looking at different ways to get our products listed, but also in the right places. In the right places.
So what's next for you? Anything on your horizon, either professionally or personally, that you're excited about?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I wanted, so just like I signed up for the ISG and the WSET program, I actually want to go back to the WSET for spirits. So that's exciting because I do want to learn, just especially, I mean, I know that I'm, the for our business, I'm focusing on the wine part of the business, but I still want to be knowledgeable about the spirits. So I am going to sign up for a spirits course. So I'm excited about that. Um, having our business is growing, and it's growing fast, which is a blessing. I'm not complaining. So just finding the right team, finding good talent and people that can, we are in, and that's another, blessing is we have um local salespeople that want to work with us, and they're sending us their resume. And when you're ready, like we would love to support you, would love to work with you. So that's a blessing. And now my sister is talking to cacao producers, coffee producers. So I mean, I'm so grateful for her because she has, like I said, this amazing, vision and all of her contacts, right? Like I said, people are coming to us, which is, we're grateful for that. So eventually, right now I'm going to start with the spirits training, and eventually if we have, partnerships with cacao producers, I'll be taking a cacao class too. So continue to learn, and yeah, my brain is going to be like, but how fun to be, tasting and learning about cacao or coffee, which are two products that I already consume and I love. So yeah.
I was gonna say it doesn't sound like the worst homework either there.
No, no, no.
You guys,
Mhm.
yeah, you're picking very solid products there
We are, we
to
are.
have to learn at home. I love that.
Yes, yes. Cigars, that's going to be a challenge, and but I am learning. I'm learning. Yeah. And I'm also learning that there are different flavors and different intents, like everything about cigars is like it's kind of like wine, like from lighters to more robust. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start with the light one here. So learning about cigars too, it's been really fun.
So I know that volunteering and supporting local causes has also been a big part of your life. So tell me a little bit about some of the volunteer work and community work you've done over the years.
Oh my gosh. So one of my passions, Rich, is rescuing animals. And if I could do more, I mean, is I think everyone who loves animals, we share the same dream is to someday win the lottery and, buy 50 acres somewhere and save it, all the animals, right? And as many as you can. So I did um, partner with the Oregon Humane Society. I worked with them for many years. We started at Urban Wineworks. We started the Yappy Hour at Urban Wineworks. It was once a month. on a Wednesday, and it's, we started with, a handful of doggies, and then it turned into a, big party, and people used to bring their dogs and have wine, and the doggies would socialize, and we would have treats for them. So, but what was fun though, and most importantly, is we were raising money for the Oregon Humane Society, and the Humane Society would bring dogs for adoption, and we would find homes for the dogs. When I left Urban Wine Works, I was very happy to learn that Bernard was also an animal lover. Um, he loves his dogs. Ronnie was a cat person, so both loved, animals. So I talked to Bernard about partnering with the Oregon Humane Society for our Memorial Day weekend events. And so we would invite them to bring dogs, same thing, that were available for adoption, and Pinot and Pooch. That was the event, Pinot and Pooch. And so we did well. And the most important thing was that the animals, they found homes, forever homes. Ronnie was very involved with, I'm sure she still is, with I think it's called the Sherwood Cat Adoption Team. And, sadly, a lot of people would dump, cats in wine country. And it's just horrible to think about it. But we would find, cats with, broken ribs and just very like injured, animals. And Bernard, Ronnie, all of us at Willa Enzi, we would, take care of them. We would, help them, and we would take them to the cat adoption team in Sherwood, once they were feeling better and they looked good, and sometimes they would just roam around the tasting room and people would be like, oh, there's a cat. And we would name them, like Munier, or, just Pino, or like, just really funny, names. And then once we got them to, I mean, they were feeling better, but also they were social, they were comfortable around people. Then we would take them to the Sherwood cat adoption team. Ronnie was, like I said, she probably still supporting the shelter. So we would take them there, and then they would find, good homes for them, and they would send me actually updates. The cat found a place, or we found a home for this cat, at a farm somewhere, or a home in the city. So they send us updates, and that was really rewarding. Like we felt like, okay, we did something good. And so let's do it again, So for me, it's always been animals. Rescuing animals has been my mission, and I wish I could do more, honestly. But the Oregon Humane Society, amazing partners, and they do a really good job.
I think you've done an admirable amount of work there. So congratulations and thank you
Thank
for all
you.
of that.
Thank you.
Last question for you. Tell me about, to this point in your career, this point in your life, what's your greatest accomplishment or proudest achievement? As you look back, what fills you with the most pride?
In my career, or personal, or both?
Yeah, either or both.
Okay, so my career, I think, where I am right now, um, just having this opportunity to work with my sister, and also helping, some of the brands. I think that this is a huge achievement for me because, it's scary to start your own business, especially in a different state, but I knew that I trusted my sister, and I knew that she had a good plan. And so I packed up my life and moved to Miami. And that's a huge achievement for me because, like I said, just to leave everything behind and start fresh somewhere, and especially a new business, a new venture, is I'm very proud of myself for that. As far as in personal, same, Portland was my home of 32 years, and when I decided to move here, it was, I mean, it was a big decision. And I remember thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, 32 years, this is my home. But I also was ready for a new chapter in my life. And I couldn't think of a better way of, starting a new life in a new city than with my sister, because she's been here. And and also just building the relationship with her too, because we didn't really live together. I lived in Oregon for 32 years. She lives in Miami for, 21 years. We have our other sister. There are three of us. And she lives in California. And so it was just to me was an opportunity to build my relationship with my sister. She's the youngest. So I'm thrilled. And I'm very proud to have made that decision. Once I made the decision, I did not look back. I was like, okay, this is it. Packing my stuff. I still have my furniture in storage in Portland until I can, bring it here to Miami. But this is where I am now. And I do miss Oregon, especially during the fall. Um, it doesn't feel like fall. Well, except for today is 62 degrees, but I do miss, the how beautiful when the weather, the leaves turn color, and the weather, Indian summers in Oregon, and then going to wine country, right, for Thanksgiving weekend. Those are things that I do miss. But I'm happy to be in Miami. It's a different world. I will have to say it's a different world. But yeah, this is an amazing opportunity for me and for my sister. Um, and yeah, and happy to have this opportunity, and grateful for my friends and my wine friends that have trusted us to work with them and represent them here.
Fantastic. All the questions that I have for you, anything I didn't ask that I should have, or anything we didn't cover today that you were hoping to cover?
No, only that one of the things we want to do is also bring consumers to Oregon. We're working on um, Oregon wine country experiences, and so that's something else that we want to that we're going to do it probably in the next year. So you'll be seeing us in Oregon in wine country terrorizing the but no, we're super excited about that. And we do, and when we talk about it with people here, they actually get excited about, oh, that's amazing. Like, when are you doing that? Oh, take me with you. So we're going to organize a trip to Oregon, probably in the fall of 2026. So that's something that we are very excited about.
Super exciting, something to look forward to. That's excellent to
Yes.
hear.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today to share your story with us and to take
Thank
us
you,
through your,
Rich.
your journey. And we're going to go ahead and let you off the hook. I'm going to stop recording. But if you hang around for a second, I want to chat with a little bit after the recording. So go ahead and stop
Okay,
recording
sounds
now.
great.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rich. This was lovely.